without further ado, Mike Gentry, you have the honors here to begin tonight. As I texted to Mike, he's hitting leadoff tonight. So he has three really interesting situations to present, and take it away, Mike.
Thank you, Rich. I appreciate you putting me at the top of the batting order tonight. Let's get right into the plays. I don't want to prophesize or apostolize too much, but the first play we're going to look at is a situation with the field judge. Gregor, run it if you can stop it when the ball carrier gets to the 20, like there. So you can see that our field judge has really, really good separation here from the ball carrier. And he's to be applauded for that. But Gregor, as you let this go, things go a little bit hinky when he gets to the goal line instead of holding the goal line and backing up there. About the 10-yard line, he should have bowed out towards the track and positioned himself safely out of the way of the offensive players and the defensive players so he doesn't get rolled up on. And he's still going to have the great vantage point of being a guardian of the goal line, which is one of the things we preach on our crew with our deep wings. And along the way, if you have any questions or anything, put them in the chat and Gregor will break it down for us.
Mike, let me just add to your excellent commentary there.
Please do, Rich.
Part of our pre-snap routine should be knowing how many big lines it's going to take to get to the goal line, so that we're not looking down at the field to find the goal line. The other thing is, if you are angling away from the goal line, the orange pylon should come into your peripheral vision, which will help you recognize that that next big line is the goal line. It takes some practice, but if you work at it, it's a skill that you can develop, and it will help you a lot to avoid overrunning the goal line and also to get back to that limit line.
Thanks for that addition, Rich. I appreciate that. Gregor, can we go to play 49 next? This one, you can let it run and stop it right about now, Gregor. So if you can back it up just a little bit and we can watch the back judge, you'll see right there his body is opened up at the hips when he gets to about the 5-yard line. And he gets stationary, watches the pass heading to the target. And then once it's complete, he'll get to the goal line, straddle it, and he's waiting for the play to come to him. Now, if you can back it up just a little bit to where the catch is made, Rich, we'd like to focus on our side judge here. She is a little late getting to the goal line as opposed to our back judge. And another thing, if you keep it paused right there, Gregor, thanks. If you look about the 20-yard line and between the 25-yard line, there's a ton of brats there. Now, this was like a neighborhood involvement elementary middle school game night, and there was at least 1,000 under 10-year-olds running around the place. But this sideline has to be cleared. That's our bad for not having it cleared. And all it's going to do is get somebody injured, ourselves, a player, or those people that are standing there. Now we shift back to our side judge. You can see her kind of shuffling and shuffling instead of getting to the goal line, getting set and prepared. And again, here she could back up another 6 feet easily to have a view of the goal line, the pylon, and the action on the players. That's not bad position, but it could be better, especially if that play was to come right to the pylon. She could be in jeopardy there.
A couple of things to add, Mike.
Go ahead.
I would use the term cruising as opposed to committing to your cushion. And it's a common mistake where we anticipate that a runner, in this case, a receiver, is going to be tackled. So we begin cruising too quickly. And then all of a sudden the tackle is broken and now we're flat footed, as opposed to continuing with our cushion. Even if the runner had been tackled at the spot where the two opponents were, there's still good reason to continue with your cushion to execute your dead ball officiating. So there's no reason to pause there. That's not the forward progress spot of the deep wing. Continue with your cushion. And then when the runner is officially tackled, all right, now you can shut it down and then turn your attention to the area around the dead ball spot.
Thanks again for that, Rich. Gregor, we can go to play 54 now if you'd like. By the way, that's a hell of an athlete there. Play 54 is a bad miss on our part. If you can stop it right back to the snap, Gregor. Perfect, thank you. We have trips up at the top of the screen. So as we know from Rich's sessions all summer long and through the season, our field judge has the widest guy. Our back judge should have the next man in. And our line judge has the third man in. Now, if you watch in just outside the hash marker, there's a block that's going to be occurring and we miss a takedown on this, we should have a flag here. Now this game, you can run it back so they can watch that back again. This game turned out to be a one-sided affair in the second half, but when this happened, the game was 6-0. So we'd like to see a flag down here. Although I will add, I would rather have a flag down with a correct call here than a flag down with an incorrect call here. So our crew meeting, we have a Zoom meeting tomorrow night. We'll be talking about this play. We talked about a little bit at halftime. And for some reason, our back judge was a little confused on who his key was. So we got that worked out at halftime. But this is still something we would want to see a flag down on. Well, Rich, I hope I got somebody on base for you. Thank you very much for the opportunity.
Well, thank you, Mike. Well done. On this particular clip, there's no one that's pressed. That's an important consideration here. So from the perspective of especially in this case, it would be the field judge. And well, I think this was first half, wasn't it? Yeah. Okay. So it would be our field judge and our back judge. All right. So we've got the latitude not to have direct responsibility for one person. So we need to look broader. Now, actually, all three of these people, after the catch is made and secured, the line of scrimmage person should transition to the point of attack. Now, how quickly he was able to do that, only he knows the answer to that. But clearly the back judge and the deep wing should have looks at this. Now, the deep wing might say, well, I had an active engagement with my wide receiver. That's true, but that block is not pertinent for a couple of seconds. So therefore, you should check down, certainly keep track of your key, but check down to the point of attack. This block started out legal as a side block, but when the defensive back defeated the block, the receiver's answer was to take him down from behind. So we've got to see the block beginning to end. In this particular case, totally agree with Mike that this is a foul that we should get down, and any one of these three individuals certainly could make that call. The least likely guy to make that call, though, is probably the line of scrimmage person, because he's going to come to it late And we've trained everyone that if you don't see the whole block, not to throw. So mechanics are important. Understanding the perspective of where things are in the field is equally important to getting plays right. Mike, good job. And you've got a good crew, an excellent crew. These are people that, as a whole, are certainly worthy of working at Ford Field as a crew. Now, that hopefully will happen sometime soon. And they certainly will do a good job if they have that opportunity. So you lead a good group, very teachable, certainly people that are intent on improving, and that is absolutely huge. So thank you for your leadership with this group and also taking the lead tonight in these plays. All right,
Thank you,
Greg,
Rich.
you're welcome. All right, let's go to a couple other plays from this particular game. Let's go with number 5. First thing here, this is going to come wide towards the top of the screen. And as it comes wide, our line of scrimmage person needs to get some depth, needs to backtrack to about the 18-yard line. Now, that's important for a couple of reasons. First of all, his own personal safety, so that you don't get rolled up on by either the runner or another player. And it almost happens there. It's very avoidable if we'll give ground. Now, the other thing is, by giving ground, you not only can see the runner, but you can also see the interference ahead of the runner. Now, here there's no foul. It's just good football. But other times you can have action that we need to consider for a foul. Now, the reason why this clip is in here, because it's a deep wing meeting or deep 3, is that our first half, so this is going to be field judge, comes up well. I like the fact that he comes up and recognizes that we have opponents in the bench, but we need to have him stop with this first group of people. You can see that there are 2 yellow shirts and 2 white shirts. Now, eventually they clear, but we should be pausing at about the 38-yard line and making sure that those opponents clear each other. Once they're clear, all right, now we can continue down to support the runner being out of bounds. But we don't want to run past opponents. Back judges, if you see active engagement by the deep wing coming that hard, you need to automatically assume that you're going to have a greater responsibility for dead ball coverage. And if something does bad happen out there with these opponents around the 33, 34, 35-yard line, we need you to pick up the crew and get that foul. And if necessary, come all the way over and help clean it up. Okay, next clip should be 19. This is obviously going to be a punt. Let it run, Gregor. Now, we have to be prepared to adjust to the depth of the punter, and this was fairly early in the game. And either through our scouting or maybe an earlier punt, we should have an idea what the skill set is of this punter and make adjustments accordingly. Typically, the opponents, in this case, Adams, they know it, and the kick returner is going to line up accordingly. But when in doubt, we want to give ground to make sure that we have things boxed in well. Here you can see that both our field judge and our back judge are about 10 yards behind the end of the kick. This is in good position because from this position, both of them can see catch, and they can also see these threats that are coming from both sides of the field. Now, the threat with number, I believe it's 82, that's towards the bottom of the screen, that's going to belong to the side judge. And the threat that's coming a little further out towards the top is going to belong to the field judge. Now, the block's clear, okay. There's not an immediate problem. Now, once the catch is completed, once it is firmly controlled, and we're not going to rule muff, that's an important consideration, back judges. Until you have firm control and in your mind if this ball comes loose, you're dropping a beanbag for a fumble, you stay with the kick returner. When in doubt, in 7-person, you stay with the kick returner, knowing that you have the support of the 2 deep wings. So the return comes forward, he goes about 5 yards and he gets tackled. And then our field judge comes up, squares off progress, gives the new direction, really nicely handled. Mechanics help us. They help us cover the field, and they also help us see things that either we choose to call or we choose to pass on. Okay, next clip should be 20. All right, we're going to get a potential foul out here at the bottom of the screen. Now you can see that the block is far from pristine. The arm gets outside of the opponent's body. If you can take that back closer to the snap. So, there's a little bit of jersey tug there, but he has good leverage. And this runner cuts it up inside. Now, this, there may be people up to the stand screaming, holding and all of that. But we want to establish a very high standard for non-safety, non-sporting fouls. So in my view, this is a good pass. The runner cuts it up inside. Now, if he goes outside, we probably have a suspect hold. But here, I would say this is a good one to pass on. And then the final point here is this guy coming in to clean this up at the sideline. This is the guy that we got to be aware of in terms of potential targeting. Now, he keeps his head up pretty well, and pretty much a form tackle. So, he's not taking aim. He just comes up and makes a football play. The final point that I want to mention is that the short wing at the bottom of the screen, because this play went wide, is looking cross field for help as far as forward progress. And he comes up to the spot because his short wing on the opposite side of the field helped him out with cross field mechanics. Well officiated play all the way. Okay, next clip. Should be 30. All right, we're going to get a snap from the minus 46, 4th down. Now, again, we know the Oxford kid's got a pretty good leg. So we know that potentially the goal line could be in play. Now, that doesn't mean we have to start there. It just means that we're mindful of where we are starting in the event that we need to give ground. Now, our field judge stays back in the event that we get a fake fair catch and the kick returner lets it go. So if it does go back towards the goal line, we should be able to locate that important line by retreating and getting back there in time to make a good decision on touchback or out of bounds. Well, and he doesn't catch it. He shows fair catch, then he lets it bounce, and it goes directly out of bounds. So we move up and get the out of bounds spot. Good job here by our field judge. Very patient and respectful of the potential of the goal line being in play. All right, next clip is 57. We're going to look at our deep wing mechanics. This runner is taken out of bounds by multiple players at the bottom of the screen. Now, before we get into this other stuff, this would be a good forward progress play as opposed to out of bounds. You can see that the runner is driven backwards rather than forwards. So this should be a situation where our short wing winds the clock for forward progress, marks him out around the 50. Now, the point that I want to make is that we don't get the support of our side judge coming up to help clean this up. And another important consideration is that we have players and coaches back so that there's a clean lane for the deep wing to see into the white and even beyond, but also to come up to support the dead ball action. So we've got the runner down in the opponent's bench. We've got a couple other players in there. They're helping him up. So we definitely need to be aware of this. I would include this as a high impact tackle not only by force, but also by virtue of the fact that we have multiple opponents in Adams' bench. Okay, next clip. We're going to have reverse mechanics here are going to be in vogue. We're going to have an intercepted pass, tip drill. Okay, this is like a punt return. Think of reverse mechanics as if we're in a scrimmage kick situation. Now, you don't see the short wing, in this case would be the HL, because he gave ground recognizing that he has goal line to our left. We don't see our deep wing come up and take forward progress. Now, this individual is still relatively new to officiating football in general, football in particular. There she is. Okay, so you want to come all the way up to the spot. Now, maybe the out of bounds spot is where she's standing. It appears that she's going to move up further, but we want to come up to that spot. Now, you don't need to knock people over to get there, but you want to come up and make sure that people know where you have that forward progress spot. So, all right, looks like he's out of bounds at about the 47. So I will retract some of what I said and say that that's a pretty good job, but stay at the dead ball spot. That's what confused me, is that we moved off of our dead ball spot. Hold to that spot, we'll get you a ball. And if you need to go out of bounds because you got opponents in that bench, at least drop a beanbag and then come up and help. It's not the case here. That breaks pretty quickly. So stay at that spot. We'll get you a ball and we leave the spot. Okay. So make sure that we don't leave the spot. All right. Next clip. This is going to be a good no call for targeting. Now, what you're going to see is towards the top of the screen, the defensive back is going to expose the crown, that number 12. Okay. Now, you can see he lowers the head, but he does not take aim. In fact, he takes the brunt of this blow. Now, it's not a real smart move on his part, but in my view, this is not targeting because he's not looking to punish the runner, and he's not launching. There's not an indicator here other than the fact that he exposes the crown. At the end of this play, I certainly would come up and say, hey, probably want to keep your head up there for your own safety and to avoid a future foul. But in terms of this being to the level, rising to the level of a foul, in my opinion, no, it's not. It's just a good talk to. All right, next clip. We're going to get a diamond formation at the top of the screen. Now, we have one player that is semi-pressed, within a couple of yards, but clearly the defense is in zone coverage. You can just tell by their movement that this is not going to be man. So what we want to do is we want to wait for the players to declare. In other words, we're going immediately to zone just like the defense has. And we're going to wait to see where these players separate. And then we're going to officiate accordingly with individual players. And then, of course, we're all going to go to the ball with our eyes when the ball is released. In this particular case, it's intercepted. You'll notice that our deep wing, our field judge, was right on the goal line in the event that the goal line was threatened. That's good. And the other thing is that potentially this intercepting player might have gone back into the end zone. So if he goes back into the end zone, we have a choice to make. Does he go back into the end zone because of the momentum created by intercepting the pass? If that's the case, then we should drop a beanbag at the approximate spot where he gained possession of the ball, let's say the 2-yard line, so that if we do have to rule momentum later on, we've got a reference point. If he goes back on his own, where he's avoiding an opponent or for whatever reason he gives ground into the end zone, we need to have our deep wings on the goal line to rule whether he gets the ball out of the end zone. In a weird set of circumstances there, this could result in a safety. Now, it doesn't happen here, but it's one of those things we have to be aware of, and it's why it's so important for our deep wings to be on the goal line. And again, this is like a punt return, so our deep wing is going to come up and mark this progress spot, and there she is. Well done. Okay. All right. That's the last one of that package. So let's now switch over to Pioneer and Dexter. I want to remind you also, if you have questions, make sure you put it into the chat. Gregor will monitor that and make a determination whether we're going to stop and cover the question at the time or, excuse me, wait until later. All right, this first clip is going to be a deep pattern. The catch is going to be made around the 10-yard line. Now, notice that we get a pause at the goal line by our back judge. Good job finding the goal line, staying there, because this pass is obviously coming up short of the goal line. So his proper position is the goal line. Now, if this is coming down closer to the goal line, inside the 5, and you're really not sure whether the challenged line is going to be the goal line or into the end zone, and 7-person, give ground back towards the end line, midway in the end zone, and be prepared to go all the way to the end line if this ball gets batted or muffed or what have you. But this is good work by our back judge identifying the line that's being challenged is the goal line. Now, the last point is that we're going to get a bump in the end zone. Run it one more time and stop it as the receiver is crossing the goal line. All right, now we know by rule, let it go just another cut frame or two. All right, now this player comes in, and obviously he's not trying to make a tackle. You can just kind of tell he comes in with his shoulder. If this player goes down that just scored, goes to the ground, flag that for UNR, late hit. The fact that he doesn't go down, don't trouble, leave it alone, make it a talk to, but make sure that you let that player know that you saw what he did and it's unacceptable, and that he is subject to foul in the future if he does something similar to that again. That usually takes care of it. All right, next clip. We're going to get a catch, no catch, or a catch and a run near the sideline. We're going to look at our deep wing mechanics. And we've got a suspect blindside block. So we get a catch outside the hash, and we're going to go down. And now we get a block from the wide receiver against a pursuing defensive back. Now, if everyone, the short wing, the deep wing, and the back judge are all fixated on the runner, this might come as a surprise to us. That contact might go, oh, what just happened there? We've got to keep our vision wide. Who has primary responsibility for forward progress? Your answer should be the short wing. So as deep wings and as back judges, we need to have an awareness of where the runner is, because that could have an impact on point of attack and making decisions about whether something is pertinent or not. But fixated on it, no, we should not be. We should be looking at the active engagements and people that potentially are going to block each other, or offensive players that are going to block. That contact should not come as a surprise. Now, with the force of this and how the player blocked reacts to it, this is clearly a blindside block, and it's one that we should get as a 15-yard foul somewhere around the 10-yard line. Now, the other thing I want to point out is the mechanics of the, let's see, this is early in the game, so this should be the field judge. Now, as this play comes wide, you should widen out. See, we're standing probably 2 feet from the goal line. We want to back up at the very, very, very least to the back edge of what would be the white that is not shown here. And all the way back maybe to that second line, which would be equivalent to the limit line, so that we can get a look at action if the pylon is threatened. The other thing that I would mention is that unless this dead ball spot is going to be at the 2-yard line, this spot belongs to the short wing. So if we're marking the ball at the 3 or the 4, we've got the wrong person marking the ball. What you should do, deep wings, is to hold your position, continue to observe players, and as your short wing is coming down, simply say to the person, put the ball on the 4, put the ball on the 6, whatever it happens to be, continue to officiate. Verbally communicate with your short wing to help him out or her out. All right, next clip. Now, on this particular play, a unique situation, doesn't happen often, the same player is going to foul twice. See if you can find it. Should be right pretty much in the center of the field. Back it up one more time. He's coming down. Okay, there's the low block at about the 41. Okay. All right, so that's an IBW. Now, who should have that? This is the back judge's person. It's inside the hash. Now, the deep wing still first half, so this is side judge. The side judge might have a look at it, but the primary here is going to be our back judge. We have got to see these active engagements as they're coming down the field. The deep wing, in this case, the side judge, had the action at the 40, right at the numbers. But that foul needs to be picked up by our back judge. All right, now continuing on, he comes up and he's going to execute a block in the back against the same opponent that he just fouled. Block in the back. So on the same play, same player committed 2 fouls. That would be an interesting announcement. Then the last thing about this clip is we get a hit near the sideline. Now, we've talked a lot about the fact that if the contact is initiated in the field of play, that absent a second act, we're going to make this legal contact. And you can see the contact is right at the sideline and he drags him down. So that is good. That's a legal hit, something that we're going to support as a no-call. All right. Now, our side judge here, this play has gotten up on him. I would like to see the cushion there be another 5 yards deeper than it was. In the event that this runner takes it back all the way. But the other part of this that would be helpful is that if you're a little further back, see, they end up rolling up pretty close to him. We want to be able to see not only those players, but others that are in pursuit to know what takes place. So continue with your cushion. Never, ever assume that a runner is going to be tackled or driven out of bounds. My guess is that the side judge said, this guy's going to get knocked out of bounds, and gave up some of his cushion. All right, this last clip from Pioneer Dexter is going to be on a punt, and well, let it run. Now 14 comes up, and if he is in line to potentially catch this kick, then yeah, if in your judgment, particularly the back judge, that 14 has a legitimate opportunity to come up and catch the ball, then he has to be given an unimpeded path to the ball. And contact is the responsibility of Team A, not Team B. In this particular case, I hope that you would recognize that 14 was not in position to catch this kick. And therefore, even though he may have signaled for a fair catch, he's not entitled to the same, well, he's entitled to protection that he shouldn't be hit after a signal. But he's not entitled to that unimpeded lane to the ball because he can't catch the ball. And you may have to explain that. You may have someone on the sideline that doesn't understand that they want KCI there. And you may have to pass that information on to one or both of your sideline people so that they can give an intelligent answer in terms of why it wasn't. Now, they're probably not going to like it. That's not the point. They ask a question. And like we talked about in Jeopardy, if it's in the form of a question, and it's a reasonable question, we should answer it. All right, let's transition now to Jackson and Pinckney. Another interesting game. This first play is 63, and we're going to have a potential DPI in it. The defensive back is going to be in chase mode. But as we've talked about, not playing the ball in and of itself is not going to be a DPI category. We have to have a co-conspirator. We need to have early contact. We need to have cutoff, grab and restrict, something other than simply not playing the ball. Here, the DB never looks at the ball. But other than that, there really isn't anything going on here. This is just very simply an incomplete pass. Now, the other thing, hopefully, that you pick up, deep wings, is that we need to get, in this case, should be first half. So this should be our field judge. We need to get our field judge off of the goal line. You're not going to see much from that position, as opposed to if you're 6 to 12 feet off of the goal line extended. Okay, next clip. This also is going to be a potential DPI. Everyone is going to be playing the ball here. In effect, this is a rebound or a jump ball, and hopefully you would recognize this as simply a play on, but worthy of pointing out and discussing. Not particularly a well-thrown ball. You got 3 guys going up, fighting for a rebound. Everybody's playing the ball. That's a nothing. Just a simple wave off. And of course, you'll probably get some oohs and ahs because the receiver sort of gets sandwiched. But the reason why he's sandwiched is that it's a bad throw from his quarterback and everybody's going up to try to catch the ball. And it looks like maybe we got a DB that's down. But, that's football. Hopefully he got up and played later in the game. All right. Now we're going to have a muffed punt. Now, what we want to avoid in any situation, particularly in the kicking game, is an early whistle, because that's an invitation to an inadvertent whistle party, and it's an invitation you don't want. It's a party you don't want to attend. So here, we need to make sure that before a whistle is put into the mouth, and certainly before air is put into the whistle, that we have firm control by our kick returner. This comes out pretty early, but if you've got the whistle in your mouth and you're anticipating that he's going to make the catch, guess what? We're replaying the down. And nobody's happy when you do that. Now, the other thing is we have to be patient in terms of the recovery. Sometimes we assume that a ball has been recovered after a muff or a fumble or a backward pass, only to later find out from the official on the opposite side of the field that the ball was actually laying next to players and no one had yet secured possession. So we don't need to hurry with a whistle here. This play ends by rule once it's possessed by a grounded player. So come up like the second base umpire. We need to make sure that the shortstop or second baseman show us the ball after they've made a tag. So until we see a football in possession of someone in the pile, we assume that it has not yet been recovered. So no need to hurry until we know for sure that we have possession. All right, the final clip from this game is 92. This DB is going to take on this blocker, and then the blocker is going to pull him back. I like this as a holding by takedown. It's right here. It's right around about the 47. So let's run it back. You can see the DB comes up and takes on this receiver in a way that he wasn't expecting. He's overwhelmed, and his answer to it is to lock onto this guy and to pull him down with him. You can see he kind of throws him down with his left arm. This would be a correct call for holding by takedown. Now that should be observed by our back judge, and it should open up to you that you see that this player is pulled down. If he's simply bowled over, obviously that's a nothing. But when you see that this player grabs and then brings him back, that's a reverse takedown. Now our deep wing at the bottom of the screen, and this is second half, so this is going to be field judge. He's going to be looking primarily at this block that's going to come in around the 45-yard line. So this is somewhat of an isolation play for the back judge. The line of scrimmage official might get a look at it, but this is one of those that we need to make sure that back judges are all over. Now, when we talk about missed calls, and you've heard me talk about this ad nauseum as well, if we're going to err, let's err on the side of not calling fouls that are there as opposed to calling fouls that either aren't there at all or are not of consequence. In other words, a marginal call. So even though we want to get fouls like this, I would much prefer that we pass than to have a rinky-dinky foul that our coordinators cannot support. All right, that's the end of that package. Let's now go to another good game that we had this week, and that is Northville Canton. We got about 17 minutes here. So this first clip is going to be really good punt mechanics. And we have to continue to think about and talk about the principles of punt mechanics. You can see that our deep wing at the top, and this is early in the game, so this is field judge. He's not in the picture. That's a good thing. Now, as the return develops and as the runner goes down, now he's coming up, stopping the clock on his way to the dead ball spot, is going to come up and square off the spot. That is exactly what we want. Back judge remains deep, keeps the big picture perspective on the return. The opposite short wing, or deep wing, which in this case would be the side judge, is going to come up and clean this up from behind, but not come up too quickly in the event that the kick returner reverses his field. All right, the next clip is going to be a jet screen. Now, the thing we want to focus on is the leverage of the blockers. If our blockers' leverage is good, we're going to give some latitude in terms of other things that maybe could be problematic if their leverage isn't good. So that wide receiver out there, in my view, I'd prefer this be a no call. It's not a pristine block. It's not perfect. But you'll see that this wide receiver is able to keep his feet pretty well lined up with his opponent. Not until the very end does that opponent get past him, but I don't see a grab and restrict. So we need to make sure that we're identifying the fact that someone has bad feet or has latched onto somebody in a way that the opponent cannot play. The hit at the sideline is clean because the runner is still in bounds. All right, clip number 20. This is going to be correct mechanics for goal line coverage by our field judge. You know, we talk about the goal line being the most important line on the field, and we need to respect that by having good mechanics all the time, but especially as it relates to the goal line. Now, our side judge recognizes this as potentially challenging the goal line, extends himself back to goal line extended, recognizes that the runner's down short of the goal line, steps back, and then is going to step up and either square it off at the 2 or inside, or is going to be prepared to communicate to the short wing coming down, put it on the 3 or wherever it happens to be. This is really, really well done. And if that pylon was threatened, we would have been there to handle it correctly. All right, should be clip 23, Gregor. This is going to be correct judgment. We're going to pass. This is 23. Oh, okay. Thank you. All right, this is an alert situation for our referee. And again, we do have referees on the call, but when we talk about being alert, we have to be alert all over the field. Now, let's just say for a minute that the referee does not recognize this as being problematic because the holder's knee is down. If the holder is going to do anything other than hold for a kick, pass, or run, he or she must rise from, get the knee off the ground, and then do one of those acts. Throw it, run it, what have you. But let's say that for whatever reason, our referee does not immediately get it, and it just doesn't feel right. What we need to have is other people on the crew come in and say, what just happened there? Because it doesn't feel right. Or maybe it's a short wing that comes in and says to the referee, did the holder rise out of that position on the knee? Don't let a brother or sister official be stuck with a bad decision. Step up and ask the question, perhaps provide information so that we get it right. Okay, they won't be happy when we turn on the microphone and say, after review, the play was dead because the holder did not rise from his knee being on the ground. The try is no good. Yeah, there'll be going to be hooting and hollering, and we may even have to explain to the potentially disadvantaged coach what took place. Doesn't matter as long as we get it right. So don't check out or don't automatically assume because the referee on the field may be the most experienced official on the field. We all need help from time to time. So don't hesitate to bring information if you have it. All right, next clip. This is going to be a short kick. Now, this is clip 31. So now this is early in the game. We talk all the time about every free kick is a short kick until it's not. This is why we have to have that attitude and referee free kicks in that fashion. Now, if you run it back, you're going to see that the ball has just got to the 50-yard line. So contact by Team A before this ball gets to the 50, the restraining line, or until it's touched by a Team B player in front of the 50, they can't block. And clearly this player coming in first is making contact with receiving team players before the ball gets anywhere close to the 50. And then we get some other blocks, and of course they want the ball. Now, so we get a flag down from, let's see, this is first half, so this is side judge. We get a flag down. Now, if Team B recovers this ball, they can decline this foul and keep the possession of the ball. If team A recovers, what do we have to do? We have to enforce the foul and retry the free kick from the 35. So there again, when we report a foul, it's also important to know the result of the play. That might be the first thing that you say when your referee comes up. The result of the play is recovery by team A. I have early blocking by team A before they're eligible to touch. And then the referee is going to repeat back and give our illegal procedure signal. And then we're not going to talk to the team. We're not going to ask the captain or the coach what we're going to do. We're simply going to enforce the foul.
Hey,
Retry,
Rich.
re-kick. Yep.
Just real quick, and any referees, please back me up or correct me, but this will be an illegal block, so it should be 10 yards, and we'd probably be re-kicking from the 30-yard line instead of the 35.
So if this block is above the waist, is it still a 10-yard foul?
As far as I know, that is correct, but please correct me, Chuck or Gary or anybody else.
If we recognize this as a low block, this ought to be a 15-yard foul.
Yeah, Rich, it's Gary. On this penalty, because it's on the kicking team. Yeah, because of the new rule from about I don't know, about 3 years ago. Yeah, that could be a tack-on foul.
Okay. But all right, that's assuming that team B recovers.
Correct.
Okay, I originally misspoke and said that they would decline the foul. I agree with you that they would be able to tack this on to the end of the return, the point of recovery, if they ended up with the ball. Thank you for the clarification. Now, further clarification, if the block is early but it's not low, is that a 5-yard foul for illegal procedure? Someone look that up. We won't take time to wait right now. We'll get that answered before we close tonight. All right, next clip. This is an unusual situation. We're going to get a runner. We're going to have a defensive player come up and go low to try to tackle a runner. And the runner is, depending on how you want to look at it, either jumps over or hurdles that player. Now, we end up fouling this for hurdling. And I think probably by the rule, this is a correct call. But the point that I would make is that typically hurdling is when you've got a runner who jumps over an opponent that is basically standing straight up. Now, this tackler is clearly not on the ground yet, but he's certainly on his way down. So at what point, this is maybe more rhetorical than anything else, at what point are you jumping over a downed opponent as opposed to hurdling over an opponent that is on his feet? So a philosophical sort of discussion, great athletic play. Again, I think that if you go to definition of hurdling, you would say that this is a correct call. Not sure that that's really the intention of this rule. As you know, this runner is obviously going low. So what are the options of the runner? To let him tackle him by rolling into his legs or to jump over him? So something to talk about with within your crew. Don't see it often. In fact, in a situation like this where you have an unusual foul, take the time to take just a minute and talk about it. You know, do we truly have a hurdling, or is this really a player jumping over a player that is about to be grounded? All right, next clip. And if you can't ascertain, my preference would be to rule this that you're jumping over a player who is on his way down as opposed to hurdling. Hurdling to me is someone that is on their feet and someone is just going over the top of them and is willing to run them over. Number 42. This is going to be a sideline catch. Now, what's nice about this particular catch is that the cushion by our deep wing, I believe this is still first half, so this is side judge. Nope, field judge, my fault. Has a good enough cushion that he's going to be able to see firm control of the ball and the foot in bounds. If you let this play get up on you, you're going to have a hard time seeing both hands / ball and feet. Nice job by our deep wing, getting and keeping a good cushion, recognizing a catch, giving this the stop the clock out of bounds signal, and then waiting for the short wing to come up. Very, very well done. All right. This next one is going to involve a face mask foul. Is that 51, Gregor? Jump to the next one, 58.
Yep, this is 51. All right, 58.
All right. Go to 58, please. All right, we're going to get a twist and turn. Now, we have a tendency, we get excited when we've got tacklers with their hands up around the face mask. And we certainly need to give it our attention because it is a safety foul. Many times, though, we throw flags on things simply because the tackler has grazed the face mask. And really nothing other than the force of the hand on the helmet / face mask cause any movement whatsoever of the head by the tackle, by the runner. Here you can see he's got a hold of the mask, twists and turns the helmet and the head of the player. This is the kind of face mask foul that we want to get, as opposed to a graze by, where there's really no safety effect for the runner. Okay, next clip. This is going to be a catch, no catch on a TD ruling. And this is really good processing by our deep wing. We're snapping from the 25. Now, my preference would be when we snap from the 25 that we just start at the goal line. That way we don't have to move. But in this particular case, we get back to the goal line in plenty of time to rule on this play. And what's going to happen here, if you can look at it, this ball is bobbled around. If this ball is secured when he first hits the ground, he's probably short of the goal line. You can see that his butt goes down somewhere between the 2 and maybe the 1. But because the ball is bobbled, firm control is not obtained until the guy is laying in the end zone. Now, if we are still trying to get to the goal line as opposed to being stationary and back off of the goal line 12 feet, this becomes a lot more difficult to officiate. We're guessing as opposed to having affirmative knowledge to make the correct decision. Nicely done. All right, let's look at some free kick mechanics. This should be number 100. Let's go to 100. We're getting a little close to 9 o'clock here. In fact, let's go to 107. We've already talked about some short kick mechanics. We're going to get a short kick to the top of the screen. Now, this was later in the game. Before you go, Gregor, think about and talk about as a crew time, score, and situation. And in this particular case, the kicking team was behind. And we're getting later in the game. They just scored. And in an effort to try to get the ball back, get back in the game, we shouldn't be surprised when we get a short kick. So you may want to put 6 in the box. But whether we have 6 in the box or not, we need to be thinking short kick. And the responsibility of the back judge and the umpire are synonymous here. What we need from both of these officials is that they remain stationary to allow this play to develop. And what's going to happen, and it's very natural, it happens at every level from the NFL right on down, but our umpire at the top of the screen is going to slide down while this ball is still loose. So go frame by frame. See, we're already on our way in, and now we're going to divert. This ball is still loose and it has not been firmly recovered. So what we end up with, he comes all the way up and actually is at the point of recovery in front of our side judge. We need the umpire, or if this had come to the bottom of the screen, the back judge to remain back to officiate players around the ball. We end up with similar looks from both officials because we end up mirroring each other. So you need to stay back, let this develop. It bounces around. This changes hands a couple of times within a couple of seconds, and it ends up being recovered by Team A. So let the play finish and then come in and help dig the ball out, get the players off the pile, what have you. But we've got to be patient and wait until plays develop. All right.
Hey, Rich, I got a question for you. Would you have called encroachment on the kicking team for this short kick with the outside player there over the line?
Yes, and that's got to be part of your consideration as you're standing there. You got to be thinking, now, back judge and umpire, if this is a short kick, this is a plane. If this is a regular depth kick, then I don't need to shut this down and enforce encroachment. Here, it was short, so the best move would be blow your whistle, kill it, and enforce encroachment. It's one of those things in the Federation rules. It really works against the receiving team because if they recover the ball, they should have the opportunity to decline this foul and keep it, as opposed to giving Team A an opportunity that they don't deserve after fouling to try to recover the next short kick. All right, we're going to close here with number 112. Go to 112, Gregor. All right, so what we're going to get is we're going to get action down here to the bottom of the screen. Now, the player being blocked, the white player that just got driven out of bounds. What we need to do is to understand our situation. This Team A player is driving this player into his own bench. Now, first of all, if he blocks him out of bounds, after clearly his opponent is out of bounds, that is subject to a UNR foul. All right. Here it looks like he lets him go, but this guy is deep in the bench. So what needs to happen is that our short wing, and this is later in the game, so this is going to be the line judge, he needs to stop right there, clean this up, and get this player out of the bench. Now, that may mean that, now this goes all the way for a score, but if the deep wing or here the field judge has him out of bounds, let's say at the 5, and he looks upfield and he doesn't find his short wing coming, okay, then step back and take the forward progress spot at the 5. Unusual circumstances, but we have to protect players when they go into the opponent's bench. That's our number one job now, or the line judge's number one job is to make sure that that player comes out of the bench safely and without any problems. All right, Gregor. We're a couple minutes after 9. So let me once again reinforce the fact that we should be nailing down our mechanics at this point. We need to understand the importance of scouting. We need to understand that teams are separating themselves from each other. The distance between a good team and an average team probably was not all that great at the beginning of the year, but now the good ones have developed and have improved. So we have to be aware of the fact that these divisions are going to occur between our teams, but we have to be not only alert, but we also have to recognize the fact that if one team is obviously better than the other, then it will come out that way. We
Hey,
don't
Rich,
Yes, sir.
just real quick, I wanted to clarify on this short kick by the team in black. The penalty would be if the kicking team recovered the ball, it would be a 10-yard penalty for illegal block and a re-kick. So they re-kick from the 30.
Okay. Thank you. I'm always glad to have Federation experts on these calls. All right, so I was about to make the point that we don't referee the score. If we have an obvious foul against the team that's getting blown out, from a credibility standpoint, we've got to call it. So don't hang your hat on the fact that, well, the game was already over, so I'm going to let somebody tackle a player out in the open field because they're behind. You know, our credibility has to be job one, to make sure that we always are aware of that and take care of that, because once we lose the credibility, the game control, if you will, things don't usually go very well. So keep that in mind. Once again, I just want to applaud everyone that takes the time either to watch these sessions live or the recorded version that comes out a day or so afterwards. And then take it a step further, that you share the knowledge, that you share thoughts and discussions with other people on your crew. Like, for instance, a great discussion point this week would be, what is hurdling? What is the literal book rule on hurdling? And then what is the practical application? They might be one and the same. In my opinion, they're not necessarily parallel, but talk about that. That's good discussion. Not that it's going to happen. I can't think of more than a handful of hurdling situations in my almost 50 years, now over 50 years of being involved in high school or college football. Doesn't happen very often, but we get the process started, we get the juices flowing, and that's good for our crews because we get people thinking football. And when we do that, we're going to do a good job on the field. So stick together, stick up for each other, and keep working hard. Hard work always pays off. So with that, we'll call it a night. Remember, next week, it'll be Tuesday, September 26th at 8 o'clock. Thank you, everyone. And Mike, thank you for presenting. And once again, if that's something that you would like to do moving forward, please let me know, and we'll see to it that you get a few clips to present.